Good morning. It's 6:30 a.m. on the 24th of July. We're back on our slab. Yesterday we started laying out the steel, laying out the structure. What we had to do here is, based on the plans, on the blueprints, we had to get our lines, we had to strike some lines, some chalk lines, which you can see here. This one came 3 1/8 back, because in this particular case, our girts are 3 1/8. They go right out flush to the edge of the concrete. The inside ones were 6 5/8 back, 6 1/8. I'm sorry, from the edge. The way this plan is, to center. It's still a 3 5/8 to the edge of the slab. So what we did is we got our measurements, created some intersections on the corner, just some pencil line intersections on the corner, and then made sure we were square on those corners, and we proceeded by there. We're 12 foot on center. These are 12-foot sections. We're 12 foot on center to our next structural piece, 12 foot on center, 12 foot on center, and so the story goes. We were able to get these drilled yesterday. To be honest, this first hole that we did over here, these first 4 holes, that took us till 2 o'clock. We had some other stuff to do, but basically it took till 2 o'clock. I didn't put all of those hours committed to those 4 holes, but in a roundabout way, it took till 4 o'clock. The next 16 holes took me 45 minutes. This concrete is a week old. It's still able to be drilled relatively easy. I used a 1/2-inch DeWalt hammer drill to drill that, and just air to blow it out. Those holes have to be cleaned before you put the epoxy in to set the bolts. Now those bolts are an actual structural bolt. I've seen it done before, and I've actually done it before, like on a small stick-framed garage. I've seen it done with just a standard all-thread that you pick up at Home Depot. However, these lag bolts here are actual structural bolts. They've got a higher shear strength. They're denser. It's just a safer bet on this, and it's required per the specs. So this morning, we're going to go through and we're going to drill our back line here. Once we get the back line drilled, we're going to start standing steel. The way we're instructed to go up on this building is we're going to set our first column over at the corner. We're going to brace that column, and we're just going to run through the other 4. Those will stand. We're going to come back to the back side. Richard, watch my dog. Sorry, my dog's about to get run over by my guy. Gidge, here. Then we're going to come to the back wall, and we're going to stand these 5 columns. Once we get the 5 columns up, we install girts and wind rod bracing. And that just stands like that. I've got a crane coming in on Tuesday to start setting trusses. So that's what we did yesterday. We drilled all our holes, and we're going to drill these this morning. We're going to start standing steel. So that's the progress so far. So when you're drilling these holes, you got two options on these holes and on these anchors. You can have your concrete guy set them, or if you do your concrete yourself, you can set them yourself. Or you can drill them after the fact. The structural engineering on my particular building gives you that option at least. I opted to go with drilling them myself, and the reason for that is I don't want to have to be cutting a bolt out or an anchor out after the fact that somebody else set, and I've seen that happen too many times, and it's a pain in the ass. So I opted to drill mine myself, and what I did here is I created a template that is the exact size of the bottom of a column, And I came through and I marked the holes. Originally I marked them with a pencil, and then I just drilled some small pilot holes. Just to get through that initial pat. What tends to happen, especially with a bigger masonry bit, or a drill bit for that matter, they tend to drift a little bit, especially with a hammer drill. They're bouncing rapidly, providing that hammer action, and they tend to drift, and before you know it, your hole is in the wrong spot. So I like to drill pilot holes. I like to make these templates. This is just out of OSB. I like to make the template, center punch these, drill the pilot, and then get into it with the requisite drill bit. So it is it's 11:25 on July 24th. We started this process of drilling bolt holes. We had some bolt holes drilled. I went through that. We had some bolt holes drilled yesterday. This morning we were out here about 6:37, and we got the rest of our bolt holes drilled. You can see them here. So there's 40 bolt holes to drill, and we have installed our anchors. So that process was drill the bolt hole, really clean the dust out of that, brush down the sides in some cases. Some epoxies say you don't have to brush the sides. I prefer to do it. Brush the sides and insert the requisite or the required amount of epoxy. Now that's different for every hole. It's different for every hole, and there's sort of a sweet spot you got to find. If you got too little, you don't have enough strength. If you have too much, it smooches all over the concrete. We used a template to do this. For these holes, it took me about 3.5 pumps on a heavy-duty caulk gun. I went with Sika brand, the Sika Pro epoxy. The spec called for a Hilti epoxy or an approved substitute. So the approved substitute did cover this Sika Select Super Strength anchoring cement. This mixes at the tip. So it's a 2-component product. It chemically cures. I can get into chemical curing because I'm a coatings guy. However, I won't. It chemically cures. Depending on the heat, depending on the temperature, the ambient temperature, that depends on how fast you fully cure out. So at 60 degrees, it's 3 hours, or let me see. At 41 to 50 degrees, it takes 8 minutes to gel and 100 minutes to cure, and then so on. We're looking at about 75 degrees right now, 80 degrees. We've got a 40-minute cure time on this. So we ran all of our bolts all the way around at each column. This one here, I set those bolts last night. So we've got this one column standing on those. So the instructions, if you want to call them that, the sequencing for this is to stand all 10 columns, to brace your first, level it up, and then start running girts. So by the end of today, I'm hoping to have all 10 columns standing and some girts run. So I'll get back to it. Okay, it's still the 24th of July. It's 1:15. I think we were out here about 6:30. We had to do all of our bolts. We had to set all the epoxy. And as of 1:15, we've got 5 of our columns up. And I stopped and ate lunch. So while it's difficult, and I do have my Kubota over there, you can sort of see how fast this is going for 3 people on a hot Saturday. We are in the sun on this pad. It's it's 87 degrees and 93% humidity. It's warm. But 3 of us, my wife, myself, and my buddy Richard, we've got all of our bolt holes drilled on this backside. We've got 36 bolts set, or anchors set, and we've got 5 columns up, and we started at 6:30 a.m. So we're gonna keep moving. So it's 4:35, July 24th. temperature's gone up. It's like 93 degrees with high humidity. It's hot out on this pad. We started this morning with no columns up and 20 bolt holes drilled, anchor bolt holes drilled, and no anchor bolts in. Today on this project, we drilled or bore 20 anchor bolt holes. We set epoxied in 36. I had set 4 earlier or last night, and we ran 10 columns. So we've got 10 columns up. Some people might be saying, where's his bracing? And I said the same thing. We're gonna run some girts tonight and sturdy them up a little bit. And believe it or not, except for that pole, that column, the manufacturer claims they don't need to be any. There doesn't need to be any bracing on them. I'm in Northeast Tennessee. We have very little wind. I used to live in Colorado. There's no way I'd do this in Colorado without any bracing. These columns are so perfectly balanced. I was really pleased. They're so perfectly balanced. They almost stand. Once you lift them up, they almost stand by themselves because of the balance. And what you're looking at here, that's not just for balance. That's our mezzanine bracket support. This one out here, this big one, is for our covered porch, our 12 by 48 covered porch. We've got the same thing going on. Sorry, that's my Jack Russell in the background, chasing snakes or mice. This is a mezzanine bracket. These 3 on the front are porch brackets. It's an 8 by 24 porch. So we only had one problem. I'm going to be honest about the problems that we had. Our bolt patterns were all pretty good with the template system that I ran. This bolt right back here, I spun this bolt right here. I spun this bolt loose. I torqued it. I mean, I don't know. It's a little disconcerting. There's one bolt out of 40 that didn't anchor properly. So I'm going to pull that bolt, re-drill it, and re-epoxy it with a new anchor tomorrow. So we're just gonna let tools lay right now. We're gonna go up. I've been smoking a brisket all day. We're gonna go up and eat some brisket, let it cool off, come down here, hang some girts, and get a good night's sleep, and start all over tomorrow.